My name is Doug, and your life is going to change. You are going to be different. My name is Mel, and your life is going to change. You are going to be different. You are going to be out. You are going to be bigger and larger than ever. Imagine this is possible. And you know why? Because just you and I will find the power that's enormous inside of you all of this time. And all of this time, you were afraid to go out and go forward. That means that you will be the shot. You will be the God when God is coming. You will be the one that everybody comes to and says, hey, look, they're there. The master's there. The teacher there. There's the one that will make my life different. And if I can do that, remember to try to stuff. I'm here to help. I'm here to change your life. Your life will no longer be the same. Together, I'm going to conquer the world. Oh, you know, everything you imagine is possible. Because possible for one simple reason. And it is possible. My name is Mel, and your life is going to change. You are going to be different. My name is Mel, and your life is going to change. You are going to be different.
Welcome to another program of Uncommon Sense. You're listening to the voice of Dr. Mel Gill. This program is broadcast every Wednesday and Friday from 9 a.m. New York time and 9 p.m. Singapore time, 4 p.m. for people in Bulgaria and times in between. What are we going to be talking about today? As soon as Luke Gill comes on, we're going to be discussing and continuing to discuss awakening, spiritual growth, whatever you want to call it. And the first one on seems to be my mother. Hey, Mamji, how are you? She says, hi, Mel. Luke will be on shortly, as soon as he gets his internet issues around. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard a lot of things about how to awaken spiritually. You join groups, you join tribes, workshops, and so on and so forth. And there's so many interpretations out there. I mean, if there are 6.5 or 7.5 billion people on the planet, there'll be 7.5 billion personal experiences of what spirituality is, or even to reach what they call godhood or so. Per se, when you try to reach godhood, it's going to be very difficult. But if you try to attain godliness, that's a whole different thing altogether, and we'll talk about that difference as well, because some of the interpretations of spirituality seem very self-serving, or people who say they are awakened but have a lot of issues, pain, struggles, relationship issues, all kinds of things, financial issues as well. You see, all of these are, no one said that once you're spiritually attuned or aligned, that once you're congruent with your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your physical life, your everything you do, no one, I don't know who said it to everybody, but if you believe that you will then experience prosperity and everything else the way the billionaires do and millionaires, then you have an education to go through, because not everybody is destined to become that. Not everybody is destined to be a Picasso. Picasso is Picasso. He is himself. Just as Rembrandt is Rembrandt, Mark Cuban is Mark Cuban. Everybody is a different soul. You can follow the way of thinking to be able to go into their mindset and to be able to understand what the mindset of an entrepreneur is, the mindset of a monk is, and sometimes the two actually overlap. So today I'm going to be talking about, together with Luke, and answering some questions as well, to know how to know that you're experiencing a spiritual awakening, if you will, and that you don't have to be like me, have a near-death experience, or to meditate on some remote mountain cave in Nepal for a year or so. So you'll be able to understand all of that happens at some point as well. Oh, I see Luke here. And hey, Luke, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Fashionably late as always. What?
I was just finishing up a little bit of meditation.
Mm-hmm. Bullshit. Sorry, I was allergic to bullshit, but yeah, Okay, good. Excellent. Just turning up the volume. Remind me when Ashok comes in to turn the volume back down again so my ears don't explode. When they say shout it from the mountaintops, no one was thinking of Ashok at that time. When you think about it. So today we want to talk about spiritual awakening and things that you actually are going through as well. Plus, we'll finish up the questions that they may have. I have a massive shoulder pain that hit me just today. I don't know how. It just on the road as I was driving, it just tightened up and not able to get rid of it. But we'll see. When I lay down, it's a little bit better. But so if you see me wincing a little bit, that's what I'm wincing from. Not because you're saying something. It's very sharp.
Okay, no worries at all.
Mm-hmm. So where shall we begin? Shall we finish up the questions, or shall we start with spirituality and then do the questions? Or you have to leave in an hour, you said.
I'm so sorry. Occasionally, I think it might be the connection here. Occasionally, it skips and sounds a little robot-y. Can you repeat that one more time?
You would like to start. I'm sorry. You would like to start with the questions first and finish them because you have to leave in an hour, right?
Yeah. I have to leave and go pick up my suit at the tailor. We did have a few questions still on spirituality. Hang on just one moment.
So wait a minute. You have to leave at 5, right? Your time.
Yeah, 5:15 at the latest.
Okay, good. Then I will continue with the whole spiritual thing. If I'm alone, then we'll talk about that. So we might as well finish this then, and that way we take care of everyone.
We have a young lady who asks, is it possible to engage on a spiritual path while still experiencing worldly issues like depression or poverty, or is it possible to engage on that while I guess experiencing those kinds of hardships that might hold you back from enlightenment?
There are two perspectives from this, and being on a spiritual path. The perspective one is from Earth, and you see spirituality as one of the many hobbies that you do, like yoga or something like this. Okay, 5 o'clock I have yoga. 7 o'clock I do a spiritual growth practice, and da 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 da. So you come from an earth-based perspective, where spiritual growth, quote unquote, is part of your practice or your daily schedule, and you schedule it in because it's there. So everything is earth-based. So you do yoga to loosen your muscles, and some people even have beer yoga to see how much they can drink, and some people have butt yoga so that they can have a better, tighter butts, and so on and so forth. All kinds of yogas, which really is not what it was meant to be. Yoga was more a practice, basically. It's a practice. It's a way of being. It's a way of being, putting your body into a particular position that you can feel every aspect of what's going on with you in the physical. So you take care of it a little bit more. Then there's another perspective, the perspective of the spiritual, where your body and everything you are going through is not that important. What you experience and all of that is not important. What is important is how you develop your mindset, your emotions, how you control your mind, how you learn the practices of being on earth. Why are you here? You're here to learn as much as you can, and literally everything, learn everything. Because in a condensate 3D body like this, it took many, many dimensions of people to put it all together. And there are folks that are actually practicing putting things together, atoms, atomic things. And if I go into it, I'm going to sound like a crazy guy. but you're going to have to experience all of that at some point. So what is important is to realize that while all of this is taking place, you will experience everything. In fact, a person who undergoes a spiritual journey will experience a lot of loneliness. Depression will hit in as well. It's natural. It's part of the whole process, because you're starting to see the dark side. You're no longer trying to be positive all the time. You'll find that eventually, if you listen to too many positive people, motivational hoo-has, you just want to slap the shit out of them at some point, because you're not dealing with what is there, because they're building the positive foundation, the positive feelings, the positive fabric, positive life on a negative mind or a negative mindset. You know what I mean? And so all that pain has to be dealt with at some point. You'll have to be able to see it and recognize its place in your development. Recognize that the quote-unquote poverty, a soul can choose. The soul is not you. It's like as if you took your little finger, your whole body, you are a great Atman. The Hindus call it the Atman. The Buddhists also call it the Atman, in the sense the oversoul is so huge, so powerful, timeless, omniscient, omnipresent in every time, in every place. That fragments of you, or echoes of you, or energy forms of you can exist simultaneously in past, present, and future. And this is where psychic development becomes, powerful, because you start to be able to see and recognize that what you're experiencing right now is not reality. What that means is that the reality is multiple and multidimensional in very many different ways. So in other words, you will begin to realize that soul will choose difficulties. Sometimes a soul will choose to be come into a body that will eventually experience debilitating diseases, or loss of a limb or arm or sight or senses, and all of that is to further heighten the vibration of the soul experiencing all of that. Can it succeed? Will it be able to recognize and sometimes be a teacher for other people? Do you know what I mean? It's like the reason you're there is because you're showing people what they can do. Like, say, for instance, in my case, I lost a left arm, that whole mountain hoo-ha thing and all that. I wanted to show people, I didn't, a part of me did, consciously I wasn't aware. And I was, 19, 18, 20, all of that, saying, oh shit, goddamn, the motherfucker, all of this, and I never understood. But so as I began to grow in this whole spiritual, I made a switch. A permanent switch. I cannot come back. It's very difficult, because once you know, it's very difficult to unknow. So everything I do now is all games. It's all play. It's all until I die and then continue. So my little finger is part of the Atman, and it dips itself into a reality. And the reality is here, 2020, September 11th. Wow. Moments of silence for the people who lost their lives. And whoever was responsible for all of that. We don't want to make it a conspiracy thing, but you have to be an idiot to think it's, some camel jockey in the middle of the desert made all this happen. It's not possible. Anyway, long story, and I don't want to get into that right now, but if you start to pay attention to the fact that you grow spiritually, the things you hold on to, you used to think were important: money, wealth, prestige, name, all of those kind of things that your ego thinks is important. How people perceive you. This is this Luke Gill, the great who da 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 da, or Mel Gill, the great da 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 da. I think I signed interest in one woman's class about, she wants to teach about DeFi, and all of that, decentralized finance, all of those things. And then I said, yeah, sure, of course. And with a whole bunch of people as well. I don't know if you know Dunstan, remember Dunstan, and a few others. Well, anyway, yep. And she said, wow, Mel Gill. I said, you develop a reputation where you don't attend other people's classes, but I do. I mean, there's a lot I can learn from everyone. and I want to know what the Singapore scene is like now. Who is doing what, who is teaching what, and who's full of good stuff and who's full of garbage. So you have to pay attention to what's there. So I play that game, Mel Gill motivational hoo-ha. This is what I am. I wrote the book, Meta Secret. Yeah, law of attraction, this and this. But the soul that I am, this is one of the many things I create. Because it's a playground. Being on Earth is a playground. And it's becoming a choice of many, many souls from all over the galaxies and all over the Earth is becoming a popular playground for a lot of people because it's tough here. It's not easy. And so when you look at the back of a bus or a truck and you see some motivational hoo-ha, which I will not name, you want to have more money like me, you want to have more women like me, you want to have more house like me, more car like me, Tai Lopez and all these other people and all these fake gurus out there, you got to fake it till you make it, it works with everything except erectile dysfunction. But so people have to pay attention to the fact that all of these are feeding the ego. So when you grow into a spiritual mode, like this young lady was saying, then you begin to realize how useless these pursuits are. Yes, you need to have in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's a survival part. Then play that survival part 100%. Jobs are hard to get by. COVID has not made it easier. It's very, very tough. Find ways to adapt and not collapse inside of yourself. If you need to, listen to motivational stuff that's happening online. So many people are there to motivate, but always remember that you cannot do most of the things that they say you can do. Become a millionaire like me. No, it really can't. When you study the background of most of these people, you realize that most of them had already done various different things to make their money. And when they had too much of it, they began to say money is not important. It was when the beginning of their career and when they lost everything. So now it's easy for them to focus on the spiritual. So I want people to understand that there's a practical and a spiritual that you have to walk between. Because while you are trying to get closer to Godhead and everything else and to understand the universe, as you will begin to understand a whole system of thought beginning next week and all of that, you begin to realize that that's one more stream of information coming at you, one more stream of reality coming at you. And so you begin to realize that the you, that is not Luke Gill, the one that's eternal, that never dies, because you can pull your pinky out of the plastic thing that covers it. You know how they make hand models in wax, right?
Oh yeah.
So if you imagine the wax is vitality, life, molecules, what Bruce Lipton calls this cellular mass that's obeying some not mechanistic system, but some consciousness that's guiding every piece of DNA in your body. So imagine that finger dipped in is one Luke in one lifetime. Another finger is another Luke in another lifetime. Now, and so on and so forth, all simultaneous. But you won't be able to comprehend. This finger won't be able to comprehend the last finger, but the Atman does, pays attention to everything. So nothing is out of charge. Nothing is out of what you don't need. And if you are really, really in a situation where you want to get out of it, then you begin to realize that all you have to do is speak to the Atman and say, I need to change the circumstances. And it does. And it listens as well. But it listens when you have more emotional intensity and everything else as well. Does that help? So yes, she will experience a little bit more hardship until she CTFD. Yeah, that's the first rule of spiritual existence. CTFD. What does that mean, Luke?
Calm the fuck down.
She needs to calm the fuck down, because you cannot control your environment if you are being controlled by the environment. See? So stay calm, meditate more, begin to realize that it's all a game. Take a helicopter view, see the bigger view. For example, some people may say if they have a particular domestic that's doing, oh, she's eating all the apples, she's eating all the good stuff, and take a helicopter view. You would have given that amount in donations anyway to people that poor. So why? One guy who's a top hoo-ha, one of the what do you call it? The cronies of this, big thing that's running here on this island and so on and so forth. He's being put in all major positions, although he's not qualified to be in any of them. But there's a big hoo-ha about his maid who's earning like some minuscule amount of money. And they tried to, and they tried to send her to jail on a false charge. It's like, what the hell? Are you all right? You're earning hundreds of millions of dollars, and here you're talking about somebody who's earning like $600, $800 a month. Are you all right? Are you mentally sound? So these people are there at the ground level, and when the dogs bark at them as they walk down the street, they bark back. Are you all right? Then you know that person is not that spiritual after all, or their spiritual practice is being taught to them by some monkey somewhere, who is in the same blind leading the blind sort of thing. But if you take a helicopter view, which is what meditation does, then you begin to realize from an Atman perspective, it doesn't really matter. You lose your job, it doesn't really matter. You have much debt, your reputation is shot to shit, doesn't matter. So what? That's all ego stuff. Ultimately, you live here, and then even if you have the best reputation in the world, there's still that little 6x4 piece of ground that's 6 feet deep waiting for you. And there people will look in and say, wow, he's got a great reputation, but he's dead. What the hell? Who cares at that point? So I hope from listening, did I answer her, or did I leave anything out?
I think so. We have a gentleman that wants to know what's the greatest quality that you think humans possess?
The ability to learn. I mean, we are essentially what we're trying to create in artificial intelligence, AI. We are trying to create machines in our image. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like some, Eric von Däniken stuff from before, Chariots of the Gods, and the gods descended, and the Anunnaki. And Anunnaki means simply, it's a Mesopotamian word that means they that come from the sky. That's Anunnaki, they that came from the sky. And so they came down, genetically altered people to become slaves to work for them, and so on and so forth. And they started to create what they're trying to create, and so on and so forth. And at some point, you begin to realize that when people are asking these sort of questions, you can again see two perspectives. One, from that perspective of the creator trying to understand the created, or the created trying to understand the creator, whatever that might be. God. Is there God? Some people say yes, some people say no. Some people have names, some people don't have names. The aliens themselves call him, it, they, them, the one. Because it makes sense, because everything comes into unity. The final law is law of unity, coming together. Male and female coming together, yin and yang coming together, good and bad coming together, hot and cold coming together. So until there is no such thing as evil, no such thing as good, it just is. It just all is. And then if you have this blanket acceptance, then you begin to realize that the greatest human quality is the ability to learn and assimilate and repair, and also at the same time change course if necessary. If this doesn't work, then go here. and then what school and everything has been teaching us, especially the education system, is 200 years old. It's obsolete. It is obsolete. And the human mind is growing. Our telephone, I was looking for my telephone, it's over here. The telephone itself has radio, has TV, has Netflix, has, wow, everything. You want any piece of knowledge in the world? Look at Google, or like Orlin would say, go, duck, duck. No, how do you say duck, duck, go? How do you say?
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Duck,
I know
duck,
what you're talking
go,
about.
go.
I don't remember the exact name.
It's like Google,
But
but more private, and nobody knows what you're searching for. And Google is collectively getting all your information. So is Facebook, and so all of it. And so these are the Borg. Like you're not a Trekkie, Star Trek fan. The Borg is this half machine, half human cyborgs traveling on a square ship that's traveling through the universe, and they destroy planets because they assimilate the life forms into who they are. Oh, Orlin, thank you, Orlin. Duck, duck, go. It's called Duck, Duck, Go. 2 ducks for the price of 1 go. But and so the Borg have one saying in there, and resistance is futile. So all of life takes a growth turn. We get older, we die. We get older, we become some people, a little bit smarter, a little bit more knowledgeable, more wise, because knowledge is not wisdom, but the application of knowledge is wisdom. And then you know what to do. Same with investing and all of this. So we're asked to learn. And so as we grow, the biggest thing is our ability to learn, to assimilate, to change, to adapt. That's amazing, and we do that all the time. If we are disappointed by our relationships, we adapt. AE and BE. You know what I'm talking about. So if you lose your job, you adapt. You start to find a new avenue. Maybe entrepreneurship might be the thing to do. Same with everything else, but more knowledge only puts you on another level, and then eventually it allows you to take a global perspective of everything. So I think that that's the important thing. But along with that, we also have an arrogance as a species. We think that we should be at our level, understand the whole universe. We thought that, you thought that, and Aurora thought that when she was 15, and you were 15. I know everything, man. You know fuck all about life. What the hell do you know that? And then at 20, you began to realize, wait a minute, some of these things were real. Changed, and then we went and did what we did around the planet, and then at age 29, now as you're sitting down going, holy shit, I was an idiot then. What I did, the opportunities I missed, or literally not just messed up, You start looking back and you begin to realize that at every level, though, even now, you're still trying. I want to understand everything because I can. Yeah, what arrogance is that? You'd be 60 and you'd be looking up at everything and going, yeah, I'm older. I know more. No, for God's sake, unless you are open totally and understanding everything really without judgment, then you may have lived some level of maturity and understanding and knowledge where you can just feed it to everyone, or you are somehow able to connect with the Akash, which is like a new element, like a fifth element, if you will. If you can breathe the Akash in, which is the sky, Akash is another word for sky in Sanskrit, but it's a repository of knowledge, past, present, and future. Now, wait a minute. If you know all this, what's the point of being here? Of being alive?
That's true.
And
There's
the
a lot of
point
times
is
where I look
to
back
enjoy.
and I used to wonder, why I wish I knew what I knew then, and it's refreshing and really cathartic to know that it was really just my soul choosing to fuck up all those ways. Anyway, we have.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's an excuse I've never heard before, as if I've never heard it 500 times. But if you spend more time feeling and seeing things through your third eye, the exercises we did 3 months ago on this program, and you start to meditate to the point where you lose track of time, what you're going to find is something very interesting. You will know just about everything, as much as you will know. Sometimes then, at that point of knowing, you descend to this planet and you participate in all of its heady, five sensory, sensual pleasures, Even drinking coffee is sensual. Having 4 fingers chicken is wonderful. Playing the part of a vegetarian to clean the body. Oh, that is wonderful games. All of it, everything is. They're here for you to enjoy, but never to hold on to. And if you can understand that, even with the great E in your life, I'll leave it like that. Wow, everybody can think God to Luke is E. He's the great E. I have a friend named E. He's an amazing guy. He lives in, I think he's the official doctor for the Knicks, right? One day we'll attend this Afestation fairs, and you'll see what I mean. Very nice people gather in all these places, and they're all seeking the same thing. But some of them make a point of letting you know they've already arrived. And with those, you have to be especially polite and calm and say, I see. And try not to laugh until later. And then you'll be okay. You don't offend anybody. But at the same time, I think part of the human condition, if I can tell you a gift that a human being has, when you reach that level of understanding, where you can participate and still go back up, is the fact that you enjoy the company of people who are seeking, and try not to be stuck with people who have already found. Because the people who have already found or know God and so on and so forth, they're going to defend their territory. They're going to say, I found this and this is it. I'll tell you why. And ding, 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 and so on and so forth. And they ride their Don Quixote donkeys and they start to explain to the world, charging it, windmills and so on and so forth. So spend more time with people who are seeking. And even if they find the answer, they still doubt the answer. And that's okay. You keep on growing, because at this level, you cannot understand everything. It's not possible. And then later, when time becomes and you grow eventually, something will just happen. It'll explode and you'll suddenly be the Buddha. But at some point, remember, do you remember a poster, a meme that I keep in mind a lot? It shows the Queen of England in the toilet, on the toilet. It shows Obama on the toilet. It shows the other heads of states on the toilet. It shows the Dalai Lama on the toilet, and so on and so forth. You have to ask yourself a question. The Buddha at age 28 achieved enlightenment, right? But he lived until 83. So how does an enlightened person eat exactly? Does every piece of food, this is the mystic fables that people build in their head. They deify people who have touched the beyond. And do the grains of food then glow as they go in, and so on and so forth? And when they defecate, do you keep that because it's so important? And do you collect all the pee? And you start to think, how did Moses pee? Did he pee in 2 urinals at the same time because he could split the water? I don't know. So you see, so you have to ask yourself that. I think with the people like this is the greatest thing that they can achieve. Enlightenment is as natural a process as growing up. A natural process is graduating from school. A natural process as waking up every day, finding that you are still on this earth, on this playground, and everything is heady, and everything is good, and everything smells good, tastes good, feels good. Even the problem people, and even if you're standing in front of a wife or a husband who's bitching at you, goddamn motherfucker, don't toast you, all of that, and you look at them and go, wow, I have a man, I have a woman who is, wow, this is amazing. How many people have this? People are all in loneliness, and they're living that loneliness. I have this. This is so cool. And another thing, you are useless, and you're the stupidest people you met on the earth. You remember when you told me you were 6, maybe 7, 8, somewhere around there. You told me you're the worst father in the world. And I was sitting in curtain. I wasn't giving you something. I can't remember what the hell it was. But I started laughing and I said, have you checked all the fathers in the world? Have you? Really? There are 3 billion. You know what billion is? No. A billion is like 3,000 million. You know what 3,000 is? No. It's a lot. It's the whole of curtain. Have you asked everybody if they're the best father or the worst fathers? Oh, I'm not the worst. There are 3 people worse than me. So on and so forth. So when you start to not take things personally, you begin to realize that you are in playground earth. It's not always pleasant or pleasurable, but you try to move away from pain towards pleasure. And if something is not right, doesn't feel good, move. If you're with someone and you're not having fun, what the hell are you there for? Really, think about it. I mean, unless you have kids, then your options are limited because you've made a point of bringing another human being on the planet. Now, at that point, you can't start chasing your genitalia, as some people do. You have to stay put and work it out, and so on and so forth. So, with anybody, it doesn't matter. You can make it out with a psychologist or the gardener. It's up to you. You choose.
So,
and then at some point you gotta laugh about it as well. Although it's not funny at that point, and it's not pleasurable at that point, but we all go through it. Sorry. Any other questions?
There's always silver linings.
I
have a question myself. About the the way you describe building up that spiritual muscle. With a lot of other things in life, you can measure your progress. You can create plans for your progress. When I take some of my clients on at the gym that want to transform their body and their health, and I can give them a plan of what to eat. I can give them progressive overload training. So, week 1, they're pushing X amount of weight, and they'll add an extra 10 pounds the next week, add an extra 10 pounds the next week to, slowly adapt and get stronger. Is there a way that people can measure their spiritual progress or their spiritual growth, and ways in which they can choose to accelerate that process by trying to handle greater loads? Or is it something that just flows naturally?
I think the emphasis might be on the word load also as well. How do I say this? Okay, the word that you used is important. Spiritual muscle. Remember, I said 2 perspectives. We work out that there's actually a billion perspectives, but let's start with the 2. Okay. There is the spiritual perspective. There is the physical, earth, dense, 3D, three-dimensional perspective, dense matter. From dense matter, you see it as spiritual muscle. There's only one shift of consciousness which will take you there, and that is you don't build the spiritual muscle, you become the spiritual muscle. So when you become the muscle, then you take on the form of the formless, the one that is you. When you were in Primorsko, or did you go to Primorsko at all? The beach and all that?
I never managed to stop through.
Okay, when I get back there, we'll make it a point to take a drive there, and I'll take you through because by then most of the thicket in the forest will not be there, and so there won't be a lot of branches out there, but a lot of very rocky roads. We'll get a car that nobody will notice the after and before effect when you're being scraped by rocks and everything else. But you have to notice that if you take on the beingness of that spiritual muscle, then the earth and everything around it, around you, or what is beyond the earth, meta earth, in a level and in a place where you cannot see past the ultraviolet and infrareds and ultrasounds and infrasounds and all of those kind of things exist. It's all around you, and now we're beginning to realize that there's consciousness-assisted technology. This is what Stephen Greer was talking about. The development with DARPA is consciousness-assisted technology. I'm not talking about 40 years ago where they had the SR-71, whose rockets were fired by thought. Rocket 1, fire off, boom, rocket 2, fire off, boom, just by thought. But this is beyond that. It literally is an interface that links whatever you think into, and however you respond, you, the pilot, becomes the craft. Do you understand that? You, the pilot, become the craft. And so it's going to be a very interesting thing when you start to realize that this kind of technologies is where our technology comes to a little bit of a loggerheads with current technology. I mean, there's a lot of people that believe and know from the evidence that we are existing in technological world that is 50 years behind what the advanced weapons research people and all of these, they say weapons, but they are not all necessary weapons. They're all technologies. And they've gone into AI. They've gone into consciousness assisted and so on and so forth to a level that will boggle your imagination. And of course, our friend Trump cannot keep his mouth shut like a child, and so on and so forth, would tell Bob Woodward, look, we have stuff you cannot even begin to imagine. What would tell you that? I mean, Gray has been saying that for, 40 years, the good part of 40 years, or 30 years. And now here's come this village idiot who became, president. And we have technology. Nuclear capability that is unheard of and is different from the normal nuclear capability you're talking about. And these are things that the quote-unquote technologically more advanced people are not necessarily from a new, different planet system. They're from interdimensional space, which means they're here, but they exist in a different time realm or cannot be seen. And so they're able to mask entire planets in these fields where they are not seen. I mean, we're told that there might be planets in our system that might be 20, 30 more than what we can see, and so on and so forth. And the path may not be all the same. So again, I'm in that world, but I'm not preaching it. I'm not teaching it. Here I'm talking about it because it's mind-boggling. And yet we are here on Earth fighting with each other. This house is mine. This land is mine. This bullshit is that bullshit. And it's like, what the hell? There are bigger things. And when you begin to realize that, then you begin to realize how bad you have been to the person down the street who needed just that dollar, and you made him justify why, for what he's going to drink for it. You got to think of what you've wasted in all your entire life. Nobody ever tells you what to do. Why are we doing that? And yet we buy lottery tickets thinking the great God will give us lottery after buying something for $1. And yet a beggar asks for $5. We can't even give it to them. What is wrong with you? Where's that sense of abundance? And so the sense of scarcity is a mindset. And that is what locks people here. The sense of abundance is what little I have. I have little. I'm barely able to live or eat, and that, but I'm so happy that I'm alive to participate. Would love to change it. I don't like this situation, but I can change it. So far, the things I'm working on hasn't made a dent. We'll find something else. What the hell? What's the alternative? Sit down and go wah ha ha and masturbate about what could have been, would have been, should have been, if only. So just get out there and just do and continue and don't give up until you achieve it. That's it. Period. End of story. I hope that answer that went a little bit beyond, actually. I didn't need to go there, but let's acknowledge a few people. Can you, Luke?
Absolutely. Darima, thanks for listening in. Charn, good to see you again. Ashok, how you doing? Dejan from Slovenia, how are you? We have Farida and Suba Saito.
Suba Saito. There's two.
Thank you.
I thought it sounded better. Yeah. Rather than SS, it's part of the SS. And online we have a lot of other people as well. Jimmy, welcome to the show. Who else? I see Joycelyn, welcome to the show. Lucia from Brazil, welcome to the show. Prayut, my old-time student, welcome to the show. Orlin, of course, is listening and watching as well. Dejan and MJ Bajan. And that's all I have on that's all I can see. Ayusa Korn. I cannot say that name without saying it like that. When you try to say the name, you try.
What? Sorry, it's crackling up a little bit. Connection.
Ayusa Korn. But no, you can't say that. You have to say Ayusa Korn. It sounds like a question. A name sounds like a question, doesn't it? When you think about it, the name sounds like a question. And then it's part of the words of a song, isn't it, Luke? Ayusa Korn and I don't care. Ayusa Korn and I don't care. Ayusa Korn and I don't care. Atsuko from Japan. Elizabeth, of course, listening. Claudia, welcome. And want to read that question? Jurairat, welcome. Ejona, welcome. Ejona ask, do you want to read that?
The mentality of scarcity is a big step to understand and be open to the infinite possibilities the universe has for us. Thank you for reminding her of that.
Mm-hmm. You want to change the word possibility to something simple. Outcomes. Infinite outcomes. And the choice is always up to us. And again, they're not finite. So even though the outcome is like that, if we don't like it, we have a choice. We can do something different. We can change it at some point. And in relationships, we'll talk about that as well. Joycelyn says, wow, Dr. Mel, I love that statement. Hi to all. What statement is that? What did I say? Just write down what I said, and maybe that will be useful for me to remember what I say. Sometimes I say things and I don't know what's coming out of my mouth sometimes. There was something you said, Luke, about spiritual muscle earlier. How to know that you're becoming more spiritual, you find yourself becoming more thirsty, more hungry for knowledge about what's hidden, what's there. You will go through the route of conspiracies and everything else. You will go through that because it's a maze you cannot avoid. it's there. And there's so many gurus out there. Just, if you will, find the ones with a great sense of humor, and who are a little bit more realistic as well. Because when I say realistic, I mean like not lost in high on something and so on and so forth. But I'm talking about somebody who has their faculty around and who has not lost touch, like most governments have lost touch of their people's needs and wants and survival instincts. But someone who has not lost touch with the ground level, where we have to live with relationships that are not necessarily positive, where we have to live with outcomes, where we have to live with loss of jobs, of money, of homes, of which is happening right now in the US. People are being dumped out on the street, Luke. It's just not right. 82-year-old women on the street sitting on a chair because they have nowhere else to go. I mean, it's like crazy. And this guy is responsible for that. He needs to leave. The military is getting together and they're all, it's a threat to national security. It has to be removed. I may not even make election. So anyway, yeah, that's a good word, Eljonah. We have to be more grounded. It's called practical, being practical. So if you want to practice spirituality, why not be practicing practical spirituality? And I think the Sikhs, actually, believe it or not, started this very well. The fellow who began all of this, his name was Guru Nanak, right? And he disappeared in a river, legend has it. He bathes at 4 o'clock in the morning and dives into the river. And that's where they bathed. They had no showers and all of that. And it was in the middle of winter, so it's quite cold. And he did not appear for 3 days. Yes, legend has it. And that when he did appear, he was changed. Something was happening to him. It was the miraculous had happened. He had touched God. He had been at the feet of God, and he had conversations and so on and so forth. But he had a wife and he had kids, and some of them became the other gurus that came after him. Wow. And so on and so forth. You have to understand all that, because I want to know the thinking of these people. I want to push away the myth, and I want to know the people, the real people. And it'd be surprising when you see how they're always people attaining and trying their best to be God. So he worked in a farm, basically earned his living doing that, and not looking for alms and what have you, just literally doing that and telling everybody you need to balance this between having a wife and this and that. So imagine you connected with God, but yet at the same time you have intercourse with a woman that's on this planet, and so on and so forth. So how does a demigod have intercourse, and so on and so forth? So these are questions people don't want to ask, and whenever I do, they look like they want to reach for some knife or something and say, shut up, this is my religion. But you just want to know the practical side. So when we take all of the hoo-ha away and all the myth away, you see the mind. And I want to have the mind of Nanak, my God. How do you balance both equally? How do you at 9 a.m. in the morning, after you worked your balls off on the field, you come back and you try and have a little bit of a bite, and a woman that you're married to says, you never ever do, you don't pay attention to me and this and that, you're always praying or meditating, and I just feel like I'm not supporting you. Okay, dear, you got to calm her down and and all of this. And at the same time, and after that, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you got to sit under a tree and meditate and connect with, and then you start writing all this wonderful poetry that everybody's still reading over and over again in temples and what have you. I'm going to be very unpopular. Hopefully your grandfather doesn't listen to this. It says, excuse me, I want to talk to you. Here's a stick. And then at the same time, sleep. And where does he go in his sleep? What does he do? What is he thinking about? What's going on in his head? I want to know. Same with Buddha. I want to know what's going on in the guy's head. So you example, there's this great Buddha statement. Can you hear me? Nod your head
It's
once if you can
crackling
hear
up
me.
and your video keeps going in and out a little bit. Now it's back.
Okay. Buddha, for
I
instance.
would love to have Nanak's mind as well. I can't imagine the ability to explain things away like that. If I was gone for 3 days and told Ellie I dove into a river, I don't think she'd buy it.
Well, a part of her would say, "Thank God." I mean, at least, hey, I have a rest for 3 days. I can just relax and breathe. But anyway, the point is, Buddha, said to a lot of people, and their phrases similar to this that he says when asked a lot of questions. He says, "When you argue with an idiot, now there are two." That's interesting for a person who watches what he says and da 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 da. You have to pay attention to that. So again, you take the myth away, you begin to realize that there is a man or a woman, depending on who we're talking about, and they were striving to become something, whatever that something is. So enlightenment, I believe, is reachable by everyone, depending. And that's the other thing about the spiritual muscle. How much do you want to do that? I mean, as far as I understand, Siddhartha Gautama was obsessed with knowing everything and being enlightened about everything. Did he reach it? It's up to you. Whatever enlightenment to be or not to be. We have no other concept, no other measurement tool. At this level, we have this measurement tool. At those levels, what is that? The first step, baby steps towards something even bigger. Who knows? So be happy where you are. Try not to, grow into the britches you want to have. Grow into the jeans you want to have. How can we be more grounded? I think life, Ichona, forces you to be grounded. Your landlord forces you to be grounded. Your man or your woman or your camel, whichever you have a relationship with, forces you to be grounded. Your daily needs for emotional needs, mental needs, physical needs, sexual needs, all of these needs forces you to be grounded. And the fact that you're on the planet also forces you to be more grounded. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. You are grounded. The question then is to be making everything that you're living in your mind, how to make that more practical, more useful, so that it's part of. Like a simple Hindu tradition, I think they have. They meet each other, they say namaste. Or if you're in COVID world, no maske. If you don't have a mask, I don't talk to you. But with the Hindus, it's a whole different story altogether, which means I salute or I hail or I acknowledge the divinity that's within you. You want to read all that, Luke?
Fantastic. Yeah, Joycelyn asks, Dr. Mel, how do you use your spiritual muscle? And how should you perceive? How should you respond to negative behaviors or react in a positive way? The statement that you mentioned on how to respond when you're an enlightened person. So if you're an enlightened person facing struggles in life, how would that differ from one who has not gone down that path?
Resist the urge to slap the shit out of people.
It's 10 o'clock.
Because at some point you're going to see that people live in cyclical mode, mental modes, and they're all very cyclical. You will tell them something this week, and next week they repeat the same thing again and the same question again. So you'll have all of these people. You'll be surrounded by them. Your job is just simply to go on and do it. But then again, like I told Luke, the You can have spiritual muscle, but what is the intensity of your emotion to want to keep using that, and why? Ask yourself the why, because these whys are more important than the actual muscle itself. How you should perceive, could perceive, must perceive, these are things you decide. If you follow some guru, then you have to pray to God that that guru really knows what they're doing or what they're feeling. If you begin to realize that somebody who is found the way and so on and so forth, that's his way or her way, and may not be your way. And so there are seven. It's uncomfortable to recognize 7 billion people on the planet, all of you gods, all of you gurus, all of you your own people. You are creators, co-creators in your reality as well. And what is the other person who is your co-creator? You are one of them. The other person, you can call it a godhood, you can call it your creative unconscious mind, you can call it the one, you can call it whatever you want. But it's obvious that there is an intelligence that is hundreds and hundreds of times more, what's the word? Omnipotent, more powerful than you could ever imagine, more omniscient, and that means knows everything. And that's very difficult for a human mind to know. And so when you trust that inner voice or trust that higher force, then you know that what you should do will be told to you. You will know what it is that you have to do. Responding to negative behaviors, well, that practice all the time. It's very, very tough. As you're younger, you begin to be more physical, more verbal. As you get older, you look at them and you go, what the fuck? You just leave, just walk away. It doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of negative people around me. Trust me, I do a lot. And it's like anything, you know. If you go out in the Singapore sun, some places are very hot because there's no trees around, and so you don't stand there. If you stand there, you get burned. So if you're facing a negative person, don't face them. Find a way to, oh, excuse me, yeah, I just got a text. I have work to do. But you're unemployed. Yeah, different kind of work, you know, so on and so forth. So so recognize that you have a choice to be peaceful people, nicer folks, people you love who love you, and people who don't love you, fuck them. You know, don't spend time with them. I don't mean, you know, go out and have sex with them, but just leave them alone. It doesn't matter. People who are rude, you know, you give them money for their wedding and stuff like that, and they never, ever, you know, pick up the phone to thank you and this and that, even though they're related. I mean, look, there are always objectionable people like that, and they live for themselves. It's all self-serving. They will always be surrounded. And so what you do is shake your head and walk away. Try not to interact with them. Try not to be a part of their lives, because it's a waste of time. It's not going to do anything for you. So don't waste your time. Spend time on yourself. You've got enough negativity to deal with inside of your head. So why do you want to deal with that? Yeah? Enlightened people, well, first of all, don't call yourself enlightened. Don't tell other people, look, I'm enlightened, you're endarkened, so on and so forth. It doesn't work like that. Luke, before I answer these questions, I know you are edging to go. You're looking out the exit. Any other last question before I take on these questions by myself? You're leaving me alone.
Nothing on spirituality. So for the sake of staying on task, I'll leave you.
No. Even if it's not on spirituality, any other questions would be good to answer them. Actually,
okay. We have
maybe one,
gentleman. He is he is thinking about making a career transition, and he wants to know how he can decide whether that's the right thing to do.
No other pieces of information. Okay.
Nothing else. No.
All right. Cool. So you can bug out anytime you like. I'll start answering his question first before I attempt to answer all these, okay?
Beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you so much for having me. And
Thank you for
look
being
forward to
had.
on next show. Always.
Look forward to talking with you. And call me this weekend. There's a lot of things I have to coach you on before you do your thing.
No problem at all.
All right.
Talk
Good
to you
night,
soon.
Luke. Okay. To answer the question, career, we all have decision-making processes in our head. We are either taught to think in a certain way, or we are not. And so we scramble and we make decisions based on our gut feeling and so on and so forth. If you have been developing your mind in such a way, no matter what the pros and the cons and everything are, you'll find that almost 80% of our decisions are based on gut feelings. And the gut feelings works from a different way that normal thinking processes go through, decision-making processes, which is logical in nature. Logical means if this, then this. If not, then this. If is, then this. And if not, then this. And so on and so forth. So you follow a line. Now, non-linear thinking process or non-linear decision-making process is using all of your sensory information to be able to see what tugs you in the right direction or not. You may decide to go left and take that career option because somehow it feels good to you. And going right, you wince a little bit, and your muscular micro gestures and everything on your face and everything, you'll recognize what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And so those decision-making processes you can make. But trust me as I say that, although one of these days I will release my book on how to think, 270 pages, you will learn about how your mind operates and how to teach it step by step what to do. I took the trouble to do it over a course of 10 years and put it all together. And I think it should be out soon. It's just that I'm always occupied with all other things. But for now, begin to realize that there is a part of you that is choosing left or right, this or that, up or down. No decision you make is a wrong decision. There is no wrong decision. You have to adopt the person's mentality who is happy in your life. The decision could be about a job. It could be about a man or a woman in a relationship. It could be about choosing to live in a particular place or another particular place. Now, the person that is unhappy, generally unhappy, is the person who stands at the fork of the road and then chooses left or right. And then at the next fork, they begin to look back at the first fork in the road and say, did I make the right decision? I should have done this. I could have done this if only I'd done it, just by looking back. And if you're that person, then you're the most unhappy person on the face of the earth. I could have done this. You're filled with regret. You're filled with second guessing yourself. You're filled with overthinking about what you have done and not done and so on and so forth. But if you're the kind of person that wants to be incredibly happy in life and everything else, then you have to be able to leave it at the fork. Hear me again. Write it down on a piece of paper and put it beneath the CTFD. Calm the fuck down in your life. Put the other piece of paper there that says leave it at the fork. And what that means is once you made a decision to go in one direction, don't look back. Just go forward with the next decision and the next and the next and the next. And you're going to decide at the end of the day when you look back that, my God, it has been a rough ride. Yeah, other things may or could have happened. You don't know. People do this very often in unhappiness when they think about the people they married. And so they married the particular person and they said, oh, if I had married that person, it would have been so much better. I would have been so much happier. This guy is a moron, he's a do. All kinds of names come out. So you begin to realize, some young women have been bamboozled by things in life, like expectations. They read storybooks and they read all of these fables and the Aesop's fables and from Grimm and other fairy tales, and you see that the princess in distress is calling out for the prince, and she's in deep trouble, and along comes the prince on his horse, and he's sitting on his big white horse, and he rescues her from her predicament and takes her back to the castle, and they live happily ever after. They never argue once about who's going to wake up in the middle of the night to change the baby's pampers, but they don't even argue about the color that the castle walls should be and so on and so forth. Apparently they like everything each other does, except 2 years later, or usually 5 or 7 years later, the princess wakes up and she realizes she did not marry the prince. She married the horse. She has to go back, and now she's looking out the window for another prince, and repeats the cycle over and over again. And when you do that, you will live in a state of regret. What could have been, what should have been, what would have been. You're not the kind of person that looks at the current situation where you've made the decision to be with this horse, and you've not learned, how to be with a horse, but you've learned how to deal with it in certain ways. And there's always silver linings in it. The horse may have delivered to you beautiful children, or maybe not so beautiful, depending on the horse, but it a lot depends. So when you start to be able to see the good even in the bad, then all of life becomes a delicious unfolding phenomena, and you become the heroine in your own story. You rescued you. You took care of you, and nobody had to take care of you. So it's not something you pay attention to at some point. El Jonah says, yes, how to put it in practice, what I know. Be practical. Just keep in mind as you deal with people that spirituality that you have, let it radiate from you, that spirituality. You try to be kind as much as possible to the lowest, quote unquote, lowest of people, and you'd be surprised. But I love to hear more. That's answer to Dr. Mel. Which statement I love, not my question. I know that mentioned that already a while ago. Wow. Maybe it's late and I don't know how to read that sentence. Thank you, Luke and Dr. Mel. Yes, make decisions as a happy person. Whoa, thank you. Ha ha ha. Any other questions? By the way, if you have any other questions, please write them down, and I'll be able to answer you as well. Looks like we never really had a chance to talk about spirituality. Already an hour has gone by. If you want to be part of this show, if you want to be able to contribute as well by saying something, and I'm going to give you a link right here, and there you have it, the link to the show, so that you can participate and share your point of view. We started off by answering some questions, and I said I will talk until Luke had to leave, and then we'll start to go back into how to dwell in a magical, although esoteric and practical level on the earth. Now, a spiritual awakening is quite simply something that happens when you have a strong desire to come into alignment with that desire, your own being, the universe, your soul, your Atman, whatever the case, or whatever you call it. And if you think of it like that, then you won't have just one spiritual awakening. You will have many spiritual awakenings in your life, because you grow from a point where you can understand, comprehend where you are, to another level where you can understand and comprehend much more, and understand and comprehend much more. So you're like a flower, it blooms, but that's not the end of the bloom. Then it blooms some more, And depending on how much you feed it, it blooms some more. And depending on how much you feed it, it blooms some more. So in the same way, you are experiencing many, many, many spiritual awakenings in one life. So most people try to tell you, oh, there's one spiritual awakening because some guru touched you, you know, on your forehead or your nipples or wherever else it feels good for you. And so they call it spiritual evolution, and that you have evolved. And no, you are evolving all the time. When you make something, when you tell people you are an evolved human being or an enlightened human being, you now created a noun. And a noun doesn't grow. A noun remains a noun, a past tense. But instead, if you are being enlightened or you're coming through an enlightenment process, then it is growing forever. If you are awakening, it's a verb. So a verb grows. A word. Let me try it in English after the water. A verb tends to be progressive, and definitely a verb is in motion all the time. So a lot depends on your spiritual strong desire, you know, to experience something opposite of what you've always experienced, and to not experience anything that's opposite of that, because then you want to avoid all of those things as well. So try to minimize the drama in your life. Try to minimize the feelings of blame, of hurt, of having hurt by people. Not everybody is enlightened on the planet. So a lot of unenlightened beings are stuck on this planet. Everything they have, they hold tight to. Their relationships, they hold tight to. Their reputations, they hold tight to. Their grievances, they hold tight to. All of these people have that. And sometimes you're the center of that. You're the cause of that. Like I said, screw them. You don't have time. You have limited time on this earth to deal with such negative people. Why are you wasting your time? You are here to experience more life, more happiness, more joy. And when you start to awaken, then dramatically your perspectives awaken. So what if somebody has been mean to you because you've been kind to them, or as kind as you can, and then blame you for not being kind enough? I mean, let it go. Just let it go. These people, many people will blame you for everything. Live a fairly solitary life and try to surround yourself with people who are more helpful in your life, more loving and kind, like really truly active, not just by words and so on and so forth. And you'll be able to do that. So it's an ongoing process, spirituality, spiritual awakening. You are spiritual beings anyway. You're incorporating your experiences into this. You're opening yourself to faith. You're opening yourself to the belief that you are much more than what you see in the mirror. And when you do that, then congratulate yourself. You're awakening to a new reality. And the reality is that what you see in front of you is not the end all and be all of life or everything. So recognizing that tells you that you have many, many more levels to reach, many more. What the hell? That was Tibetan. Coming back to English in 1 second. That you have many more experiences to go through, and that you have many more truths to unravel and to experience in your life. Remember, there is not a truth, the truth. There is just the many, many truths that you come across, and those will change. Someone asked me, Luke asked me earlier, does spiritual awakening have to be painful? I think somebody asked. It doesn't have to be painful. The reason why it's painful is because painful events or painful people can trigger what many people call this thing, spiritual awakening, because a person is forced to let go of control. There's some things you cannot control, like the idiots, you know, so on and so forth. There's some things you cannot control, like what the government does. There's something you cannot control, like your environment and the way it is, and the planets and the hoo-ha and everything. There are many things you cannot control. So in this state, people begin to realize the magnitude of life, how much bigger it is. It's more. I mean, I live in Singapore, but you got to know that living on earth and spirituality is much more than this island, which was part of Malaysia less than 50 plus years ago. I mean, you can change the nation and the flag and the this and the that and call yourself whatever you want, but ultimately you are an earthian. You know, you belong to earth. You were born on earth. If you look at earth from a satellite, there are no countries, no marks, no demarcations. These are walls in the head, in the mind. And when you take these walls down, you begin to realize that you are a citizen of the planet, and that this magnitude of the relationships and the love you have from relationships and everything that it represents, even the work that you do, the children that you have, the parents that you have, these are powerful indicators that life is truly, like Einstein said, magical. So when you start to learn from various, you can learn from various gurus and masters or whatever they call themselves, because you take what it is that you find useful, take what it is that you can use, make sense to you, and continue with that. And if it doesn't make sense to you, you don't have to take it. You're not obligated to do that. Listen, if you will, and talk about, when you start to look at information out there, see several things, pay attention to several things, see what the experience that you're going through is like contrasted with somebody else's experience or your past experience, and then begin to realize that there is a source from which all things come. Whatever name you call that source, Jesus, Buddha, Nanak, the One, so on and so forth. You decide, and it answers. It answers. The universe is not. The universe is not static that way. You will get answers. Ask and you shall receive. This is true. And at some point, you'll have a desire to reach something. If your desire is to reach Godhood or to reach God, like the poster behind me suggests, Einstein suggests that I want to know God's thoughts. The rest are just details. And so then you start to align yourself with that desire, however intense it is. More intense it is, the more you will pursue it. Less intense it is, at some point, you will not pursue it and you will drop it at some point as well. So you got to maintain this alignment. This is important. If you decided that this is what you want and this is what you want to maintain, then you stay that way and make sure you stay that way. Find means, find ways of thinking, ways of feeling that allows you to stay in that way. And then you got to appreciate the contrast of what is in the world. And don't be so belligerent about your findings and your truth, because it is a truth. And the more you realize that, you begin to realize that in a humbling manner, there's 7 billion truths on this earth. Now, if there's a collective or a bunch of people called your tribe that feels the same way, then you're safe for a little while. But in the real world, can you teach people by example? Don't force your religion or your concept or your truths on others. Show by example. You said, you believe this way? That's true. Okay, are you happy? Does it make you a better person? Do you respond to life in a humorous way? Do you have more fun than most people? Are you suicidal and on the edge of suicide until something becomes real for you? See, you have to ask these questions because those are very important questions that helps you to realize. Wow, many questions. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Joycelyn says, where are you, Joycelyn? Dr. Mel, when you're enlightened and awakened, does it mean you reach the Sigmund Freud level of growth, self-actualization? Again, it was Abraham Maslow that created the hierarchy of needs. That's what it was. It's a theory. It's a theory that's been accepted among a whole bunch of people. And it seems logical and useful, but is it true? Well, your experience will tell you. Sometimes the cause, creates an effect. Other times the effect happens first, then there's cause. So Maslow's hierarchy of need is a useful tool to look at society as a whole, societal tools, and then you start to pay attention to those as well. But at the same time, you have to pay attention to the fact that while there are studies, intellectual papers put up on all of this, nothing beats the personal experience of enlightenment or awakening to possibilities, awakening to higher levels of possibilities. I'm sorry. So keep that in mind. You can go into trying to become more spiritual and awakened. You can use the mind if you want, but that's not where you're going to achieve a connection with the highest forces there is out there. The mind doesn't do it. The mind, in fact, is in the way, but it makes it difficult. So pay attention to that. It's not, you will not touch Godhood, or you will not become godly, quote unquote, by opening to, well, you have to open to faith at some point, but you also have to open to the fact that there is nothing you can control your direction to. It draws you. It will just simply draw you. And you ask yourself this question, why am I doing this all the time? And that desire to connect with something greater than yourself is what you need to pay attention to as well. It's your compass, if you will. Now, when I talk about contrast, you haven't asked that question yet. Let me tell you, it would include actually experiences that we consider painful when you start to contrast. But it also includes anything that we experience as negative. So most people stay in their step one moment, of learning, instead of moving forward to step 2 or step 3, because if you want, actually, step 3 would be your job, to be able to recognize where it is you want to be instead of here. And that's called solution-based consciousness as well. Step 2 is what the source's job is to take you through that process so that you get there at some point. Again, the element of control is not what you have. At some point, you have to let it go. So maybe for myself, I've had maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bigger feelings, of spiritual growth, if you will, or spiritual experiencing, in the last 30 years of my life. So all of these came from contrasting, as everything does. But I handled each one differently, as you will handle each one differently, because all of you are different people. So when I experienced the very first one, I can tell you about that. I moved into, I skipped several steps, literally fairly quickly, because the spiritual nature, the spiritual awakening, if you will, did not seem to be born as a result of the pain. It was definitely catapulted. I was launched forward by the contrast of the pain, and I didn't stay there too much longer. I just had a different perspective, and that perspective helped me to overcome the anxiety that I felt at that moment. So when I stayed in that anxiety state, I would stay in it for weeks sometimes, and 1 or 2 times I remember staying in it for months. I was so focused and terrorized in this reality that I had conceived that it was hard to pull myself away from the proverbial ledge, and fall. So this is what many people identify as a spiritual awakening, because deeper pain and more perceived darkness was involved in that process. And it's what you perceive. All your fears come to the fore. Your questions, where you start to doubt yourself, they will come up. This is the time it will come up. And yet, out of all these experiences you have, you will feel a deeper understanding and a deeper connection with your inner being, and it will feel euphoric. It doesn't matter, because it's kind of like the psalm that says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I shall fear no evil, because God is with you," and so on and so forth. So you'll feel that guidance, and that guidance will come from within. It's life-changing, and it's filled with so much inner peace. At some point, you will begin to realize that, wait a minute, I can call on this immense power, whatever its origin, call it source, if you will, and I can be guided to be led in a particular way that will find a solution to my particular quote unquote issue or situation. Not a problem, situation. Everything is a situation. At that point, it's all changeable. And that's why, I particularly don't believe in that spiritual awakening needs to be born of some person's dark period or pain. It's not necessary. It's all temporary little stages. You will see it. You will pay attention to it. And at some point, you will go past it. And you say, what the hell was I afraid of? Nothing. You don't need to. The only reason why one period of your life can feel darker than another is because you stay disconnected from your inner being longer. And the more you are connected with your inner being, then you begin to realize that all contrast is the same. So no matter how you come into alignment with your inner being, either after a long battle or existence, or with faith, like I said, or trust, you will start to experience many beautiful realizations. New perceptions will result. You begin to recognize people for who they are, basically. And again, no one is all evil or all good. Everyone's a mixture. You will begin to live and be comfortable living in an existence where, well, you become comfortable living in a gray world. There is no black. There is no white. There's just shades of gray. Darker shades become blacker. Lighter shades become whiter. And you begin to be comfortable in that. You begin to become comfortable with uncertainty. And at that point, it's exciting. Your heart will beat much faster because you don't know what the hell is going to happen. But you did your best. And you planned it. And you did what you needed to do. And then you start paying attention to all the signs and all the symptoms of what you're going to be experiencing at some point. And some of these may include, sorry, let me prepare that. Some of these might include, say, a strong desire for a shift in reality, that you want to experience something a little bit more, a little bit better. And maybe you want to close the gap between a sense of separation from source to one of being one with all there is, let's call it source. It's safer, I think, in another way. People call it the universe. People call it God, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So a spiritual awareness of reality will then come up beyond this physical senses of what you have. You begin to recognize the animalistic, mechanistic nature on earth. You begin to see people executing patterns and subconsciously executing patterns, and you begin to see those patterns of behavior, patterns of thought, patterns of emotion, and you will then be able to realize that how much are you executing these same patterns in your life, and then you begin to learn from that as well. You will find yourself becoming quiet a lot more. You begin to realize that you don't care what people think about you too much, or you care less. Not don't care, but you care less about that. So a spiritual awareness of reality then becomes something that goes past every physical sense you have. So in other words, if you taste water, if you are spiritually attuned, you begin to realize that what you took into you was an ocean of possibilities. According to Masaru Emoto, the Japanese man who talked about the effect of just touching water and putting a symbol on it, changes the very nature and structure of water. Imagine what's going into your mouth as you think about it. And so part of you is being programmed because you are 80% water. You will start to grow a deep sense of inner peace, joy, relief. That's how you know you're on the path. You will start to have and develop this trust and surrender to a flow of life. It begins to flow. And sometimes you will try to take control, and then you begin to be reminded again that nothing is under control. And then that's where the whole memes things that you see everywhere, people are telling you nothing's under control. Easy to say, but when you experience spirituality, you experience that growth, and you start to develop it consciously and pay attention and be in it mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, then you begin to realize that this surrendering to the flow of life is probably the best thing that ever happened to you. Let's see what happens. Who knows? But I have to complete this. I have to complete that. If I don't do this, I don't get that. What will people think of me? Now you've gone off that spiritual track and you're back on earth. Welcome back to earth. How was it here? Would you like to go back there? Well, bring it down. Bring it down to this level. Make it practical. So you will then begin to also have an awareness, a growing awareness of your eternal nature, that you are not the body you see in the mirror. That you have too many people here and in Thailand, old people trying to look young, say, look at me, I drink the particular water and a particular thing. If you buy it for $200, you will become young and youthful. Like, for what? Life is about your body getting older. Your breasts will not be up here anymore. They'll be down at your knees. You could play games with them as you get older, I guess. But at some point, you have to pay attention to the fact that you will die and you will leave this planet. And when you become more aware of the you that's inside of you, you'll see it in your eyes. The eyes are the trick. People ask me questions about how do past life lovers recognize each other. From the eyes. You look at the eyes, and the eyes, whatever is contained in the eyes stays the same. I'm not talking about the color. I'm not talking about the shape. I'm talking about the essence that flows through the eyes. And there's a force, there's an energy, there's something that's a vitality that's in the eyes that you notice. And then you begin to know about anyone at that point. In fact, that's a trick to also being able to remote view and to be able to recognize what people are thinking and feeling at any one time. Sometimes you go into a person's mind, you'll get something unpleasant, or you will feel a lot of their pain as well. So you decide how much you want to open yourself to, because when you see in the mirror your own eyes, you begin to realize that you, the essential you, was never born and will never die. This body you will shed, but you will live on. And the moment you can feel that, the moment you can come to a particular place where you were living a past life, you begin to realize that the external form is simply just the external form. So you will begin to pay attention to that eternal part of you. So becoming aware of your own power and your contribution to the creation of every reality you experience, whether it's good or bad, it was in your power. Nobody else was responsible for that. And if somebody was, it's your relationship with them that made it possible, or your non-relationship with them that made it possible or not. Opportunities come, and yes, they go, and you will lose them, but you will also have more, and life will open itself up. So start to recognize that these are your, what do I call them? Symptoms of spirituality, if you will. You become connected more with stuff that's happening within rather than stuff that's outside of yourself. See, right now, your consciousness is paying attention, maybe 90% to what's happening outside, and 10% to what you're feeling inside, or thinking, or so on and so forth. If you could turn that towards you, so that eventually Even if you could raise that inner view of yourself to 40%, 50%, 60%, the calmest people in the world and the most enlightened people in the world are the ones who have 90% focus on the inside, 10% on the outside. And it varies, it changes depending on the situation. At that point, you start to learn to forgive others, and you begin to forgive yourself, and you learn to love yourself. And the first step to loving yourself is to forgive yourself for every wrong that you ever experienced, because you allowed yourself to experience it. You allowed yourself to be hurt and so on and so forth, and forgive yourself for doing that to yourself. It's okay. It's something that brought you to where you are. At some point in your spiritual growth, you begin to realize that there is no wrong or right way. You begin to realize that everything is correct. It doesn't matter. There is no wrong decision. There is no wrong choice of person in your life. There just is. And if you're not happy with is, go to the next. Every relationship, and this is what people hate to hear from me, every relationship is a preparation for the next relationship. Be excited to be in that relationship, but if it ends for any reason, don't blame the person. Just look at them and go, wow, I didn't think that you would be da-da-da-da-da, whatever. And then be excited because one more is coming. And it will always be. There's always some nature abhors that kind of vacuum thinking. Unless you're stuck in there and you find yourself, not able to get out, and then talk to me again and we'll help you. There is a great mystery in life. We don't know everything. But the human mind has a deadly need. 9 deadly needs, and one of the most deadly needs is that need to know. I need to know, who is God? Where does he live? What does he do? Is God and Santa Claus the same person? So on and so forth. Yeah, come on. And so you have the arrogance to believe that you can understand all of that, and you can't. The universe is vast, and that's the universe you can see in this primary plane of life. This is the universe you see in a 3D reality. Come on, there's a 4D reality beyond time. Temporal realities don't matter in it. At some point, there are multiple universes. And when I say multiple, I don't mean 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of parallel universes. The kind of godlike or godly power to be able to do that is infinitely incomprehensible. And the one that guides you is without fear, without hatred, without, so on and so forth. You got to pay attention to that, because it is what guides you. And there's this great mystery, and we know nothing about it. Surrender to it. It has a place for you. Also, at the same time, when you're growing spiritually, you begin to release what is no longer useful to you, what no longer serves you in your purpose, in what you have to do. I know it sounds selfish, it sounds terrible, but you have to live your purpose. You have no more time to run around in circles, doing negative things, arguing with people. You have no more time. If you knew how little time you have, you will spend less time with the people who are angry with you, the people who don't love you, the people who think you should do this, you ought to do that because you're the role, whatever role you play, grandfather, grandmother, nephew, niece, uncle, aunt, lover, friend, brother, sister. What did I leave out? Husband, wife. Somebody else's husband, wife. It's up to you. So when you start seeing yourself and others in a very new light, with love, with compassion, not over love where you wake up kissing them every day and scare the shit out of them, but I'm talking about seeing everybody they're going through a lot of trouble, they're going through a lot of pain, and you want to do everything you can to heal them, not just physically, but mentally. But if like, say for instance, a wounded cougar or tiger or lion, they can kill you. So yes, your intention may be good to want to heal them because their wound is bleeding or so on and so forth, But you also have to recognize that you have to stay unharmed in the process. Even though you're trying, your heart's in the right place and you want to heal them. Wait till they fall asleep, if you still can. Otherwise, walk away. And ask yourself and say to yourself, if you want to be healed, come. If you want to fight and maintain how right you are, how wrong I am, then I have no more time for you. You will find also as you become more spiritual, quote unquote, more spiritual, more awakened, that miracles, quote unquote, miracles that this guy talked about, Einstein, you can treat everything as if it's a miracle, or you can treat everything as if it would not. And if you treat everything like it's a miracle, then you begin to realize they happen every single day. Abundance flooding into your life. And abundance doesn't have to be money all the time. It can be an abundance of feeling love, an abundance of freedom. A lot of people don't have freedom. They live in cages, in pain. An abundance of possibilities, an abundance of, some people have an abundance of food and a few other things. So again, begin to realize that opportunities and abundance is all around you. They come flooding in. And learn some of these body healing techniques, if you will, that will help you and heal your body. Eat the right foods that make you happy. Relationships, try to improve them if you can. And if they don't want to be improved, then hey, what can you do? You don't have much time. So beautifully organized universes begin to open around you. We call it synchronicities. They begin to happen around you a lot. Don't look for them, because the more you look for them like butterflies, the less you'll have. Just enjoy them as they come your way. And throughout all of your days, you'll be surprised. I was just thinking about this. Wow, this is great. And you're just having a fun time. So you will find at the end of the day, and to know if you're on the right track, that your very strong feelings of appreciation of everyone and everything in your life, of where you are, where you find yourself, even with the COVID situation and everything. And you will find also this great feeling of love for life, for the life you live. I said to you that Nietzsche had talked about something called amor fati. Amor fati means to embrace your fate, whatever your fate is in life, whether it's pleasurable or not. That's your fate. Accept it. And if you want to change it because you don't like the happenings to you, well, change something. It's not a problem. It's a situation. And the more you realize that it's not a problem, it's a situation, the more you see possibilities for changing one variable. If it's a problem, changing variables doesn't help. If it's a situation, change one variable. And the variable could be how you think, how you speak, how you feel about that situation. And suddenly it changes. Or don't participate and see what happens. You have a very short time on this planet, and it's time for you to experience more happiness, don't you think? When we open to faith, we become vulnerable to the universe around us as it unfolds. The more you realize that you are here, sometimes looking for gifts all around you, you must never forget that sometimes you are the gift. And when you realize that you are the gift, that you can make a situation that's heavy become light, if you want, that you can change the reality of someone who is experiencing massive pain, so that they experience the pain as a learning, then you have changed everything. You have opened up them to faith. Once upon a time, there was a man who was about to cross the sea. A wise man tied a leaf in a corner of that man's robe, and he said to him, "Don't be afraid. Have faith and walk on the water. But look here, the moment you lose faith, you will drown." So don't lose faith in your growth. Don't lose faith in the fact that you are being guided. That no one on this planet, and I can say this for a fact, for someone who has experienced a near-death experience, I've been there and been back, that you are never alone. Yes. Call them angels, call them guides, call them loved ones who have passed before you. They're always there, always ready to help. All you have to do is ask. We as human creatures often move away from pain, which is helpful only before being hurt, really. Because once in pain, it seems the only way out of that pain is to go through it. And like someone falling off a boat, struggling to stay above the water, only makes things worse. We must accept that we are there and settle down enough so that we can be carried by the deep, by the water, by the waves. And the willingness to do this is the genesis of faith. The giving over to currents that are larger than us. Even fallen leaves, when they float in lakes, they demonstrate how surrender can hold them up. We can learn from the leaves that ducks swim around in sometimes in a pond, that in life, as in water, when we curl up or we start to flail around, we sink. When we struggle, we end up deeper in pain. When we spread out ourselves and we go still, we are carried by the largest sea of all, the sea of grace, that flows steadily beneath the turmoil of all events in our lives. And just as fish can't see the ocean they live in, we can't quite see the spirit that sustains us. Again and again, the onset of pain makes us clutch and sink. But life has taught me that how we first open after doubling over in pain is crucial to whether or not we will heal at all. Because the healing comes after feeling the pain. You only have two choices at that point. To go back into the pain and stay there, or to go through it, to see the hopes and dreams and desires and aspirations that were always on the other side of that pain. I want to thank you for staying this long and paying attention to everything I'm saying. If you're listening to this broadcast later, recognize that we run this program every Wednesday and Friday, 9 a.m. New York time, 9 p.m. Singapore time, and 4 p.m. Bulgarian time. I want to thank you. You've been listening to the voice of Dr. Mel Gill, and this has been Uncommon Sense. Good night.